Sup mofos, DJ on Game Day back again for another week. You got Brent, you got the Bogan, no Joshy with us this week. We've given him the week off. He's been pumping the content out, but myself and the Bogan will be looking after you as we review the Tigers in this episode. Bogan, how are we?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Yeah, it's a bit weird because we tend to film these episodes back to back, so you've asked me that question twice already. But here looking forward to seeing what you think of the West Tigers. Probably a team that aren't on many people's radar, but definitely as dangerous as any of the NRL teams out there.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Before we jump into the Tigers, obviously jump into the BJ on Game Day Supercoach group 218667. We'll review that group, in our weekly shows, all the top scorers, the people doing well. Obviously it's great to see a lot of support. We've got quite a number of people in there already, but it'd be great to see some more. So jump in there, 218667, and let's jump into the West Tigers for 2020. So we'll jump through a few of the Supercoach options. We've got a predicted team list up there at the moment. Now, this is obviously subject to change. Team list Tuesday will confirm or deny everything. This is a possible 17. It's probably going to be pretty close. I'd imagine there might be a couple of tweaks depending on what happens in terms of injuries and trial form and that sort of thing. But you'll get a pretty good idea from this. We'll start off with this team list. Starting from the top, you've got Corey Thompson. The wings will be Robert Jennings, Dave Inofaluma. Possible centre pairings of Adam Dewey, the new signing, and BJ Leilua, another new signing. Likely to see Marshall Brooks pair up in the halves. That's their best sort of halves pairing, I think. A couple of young sort of blokes will be up front for them in Alex Twal and Thomas McKaylee, guys that are just look really good and getting better and better each season. At this stage, very interesting with the Tigers, what their hooking sort of options are. It looks like possibly Moses Mbai at the moment's penciled in there. I've also got guys like Josh Reynolds, Harry Grant might be a possible transfer from the Storm, depending on what you read, with Paul Momirovski. And I think they've also got Billy Walters there as well, who was at the Storm last season. So interesting to see what happens with that 9 position. I don't think of Moses Mbai as a 9 normally, but yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Back row, they're possibly going to run with Cheekham and Garner, with the lock position filled with Eisenhuth. Bench of Josh Olawai, Chris Lawrence, Elijah Taylor, and new signing Luciano Leilua. Jacob Little, I think, not in the running with I think he did the ACL at the end of last season. Oliver Clark's one of the big forwards who might get a spot. You got guys like Chris McQueen, Tommy Talau as well. I think I read a headline he'll be not in the running for their round 1 side, but what we'll do this episode is run through some possible options that you might be able to think about for your Supercoach side from the Tigers. I'll be honest, there's not a huge deal. They're probably going to be guys that are, generally speaking, going to be pods. A lot of awkwardly sort of priced guys, but if you are, a Tigers fan, or you're happy to sort of take a punt on some guys, there's, some possible options there. We will start from the top. Their most expensive player coming into 2020 will be Dave Noafaluma. He's priced at 600 plus at the moment. Pretty hard to pick him. He finished off the season quite well. He didn't actually play majority of the first half of the season, which is quite interesting. Look, he is a proven Supercoach performer. He's a proven gun. He's a premium outside back. I just find it difficult, and I can't see many teams starting with a 600,000K winger to start the season. That said, I couldn't blame anyone for having him. When he's on, he's on, but he does pump out the 20s and the 30s, which, if there's any of that in the first 4 weeks, we'll probably see him drop significantly. If there's a couple of scores, sub 40 scores, like I said, in that first sort of 6 weeks, you could find him $100,000 cheaper or even more, if you wait a few weeks on him. I think, interestingly, that there's also some options there in terms of who they run at fullback. They've just signed Adam Dewey, who could fill in there. You've got Corey Thompson as well. Again, these guys are sort of awkwardly priced. I don't really think you can pick guys like Adam Dewey or even Corey Thompson just for their price. They're sort of just in the middle there, and they're not, there's nothing about them that really strikes me as must-haves. Corey Thompson had some good games last season. But again, I think just for his price, it's a little bit hard to start with him. The back row options are interesting. You got Cheekham, who possibly gets a starting spot at 370k. The minutes will be interesting. Again, he's not really a back rower that will produce a great amount of base stats for you. You are going to rely on him to probably cross the line, get those attacking stats, those offloads, which he does have in him. I just think security possibly is an option. I think he tends to sometimes be a little bit injury prone. In contrast to that, you got Lukey Garner, he's quite premiumly priced, but he had quite a breakout season last year. He hits holes really well, got plenty of attacking stats running off Lukey Brooks. So I think he's got one of those spots locked down. What I do want to talk about with the Tigers is the Leilua brothers. So they've obviously signed Joey Leilua and Luciano Leilua. Joey sits at the 465k mark, so he's not a premium price, but he's also not exactly an easy to pick price. He has been a premium, outside back in years gone by. He was a bit quiet last season, but possibly if you're willing to take a punt, he's going to have some guys like Benji and Luke Brooks creating things for him, and I'd imagine he's probably going to be the go-to centre. Even if they put someone like Adam Dewey out there, I can't see him going away from Joey Leilua, especially if he's paired up on the side with Noel Faluma. I'm not entirely sure which side he'll play. He played on the right for the Raiders, so we'll have to see what happens there, because I think Noel Faluma plays on the left, if I'm correct. Someone correct me if that's wrong. But Luciano Leilua, unfortunately for his price, he's 430k. I'd love to see him get a starting spot. He's a devastating bloke. He averages 1.13 points per minute. So if he's playing, 40 minutes, just because of how much of a handful he is with his tackle busts and his offloads and his ability to create, just because of his size and his agility, it would be great if he was possibly like maybe 100k cheaper or so. Unfortunately, his price is reflective of a pretty good finish the end of last season with the Dragons. He did get 80 minutes to finish the last sort of 4 weeks of last season. And he did produce. So he's a little bit inflated. But again, for a big man, he can play 80. He's similar to that Villy sort of kick-out mould. It would be awesome to see him get a starting spot. But at the moment, I don't think you can go him for his price and the fact he's on the bench. But, I mean, if it turns out he ends up playing for 60 minutes, coming off the bench in 30-minute stints, he's definitely an option. Maybe another one of those guys in draft. You could take the late draft pick that you could take a punt on. Obviously you got Brooksy there in the halves with Marshall. I think that you can't pick them Supercoach wise. They're a bit awkward price, and too many other solid options. They have their days, but they're very inconsistent. I'll be interested to see, as I said, what happens with that hooker position. I think the problem with the Tigers from a general footy perspective will be up the middle. Even if they run a guy like Mbai or Josh Reynolds or one of those guys, the props are still fairly young. The bench rotation in terms of props isn't, huge. These young guys are good, Alex Twal and McKaylee and Aluai, but I think it possibly might be liable up the middle. I've got no facts to back that up, but just sort of looking at face value at the side. Oliver Clark looks a good young bloke. I'm not sure. He might find his way into a bench spot. Possibly it might be a bit strange having Lawrence and Taylor on that bench, because they are both similar sort of utility guys that can play those Mr. Fix-Its. Taylor can fill in at number 9. Chris Lawrence can play centre, back row, wherever it is. Same with Taylor. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with these guys. I think Twal had a bit of a breakout season last year. McKaylee as well. They're two young props. It'll be good to see just from a footy playing perspective. But not a lot really jumps out at me from the Tigers side from a Supercoach perspective. As I said, a lot of just awkwardly sort of priced guys. Like I said, you can keep an eye on how Cheekham starts, possibly BJ, maybe Luciano, depending on his minutes. Possibly someone like Harry Grant could find, if he finds himself transferred over for Paul Momorowski, he could possibly be one of your bench hookers. He's at bottom dollar. Tommy Talau is probably the only other guy that comes to mind. Hopefully might get a starting centre spot, and he does look really good. But with the signing of Adam Dewey and obviously Joey Leilua, he's probably only going to find his way into the side through an injury to one of the regulars. but we'll see what happens. He's sort of a bit disappointing because he would have been a nice 200k outside back option. But he's class. He looks class. So hopefully he gets an opportunity and can sort of cement his spot possibly sometime during the season if you've got him in there. That's probably it from a Supercoach perspective, Tiger player-wise. I think they've got probably more options draft sort of team-wise. Guys that obviously with no price tag bring different prospects. Guys like Joey Leilua, even someone like a Luke Brooks, David Nofaluma, obviously. Again, Luciano Leilua late in your draft if you're looking for, a bench back rower. But yeah, from a classic Supercoach and spending dollars, finding some value hard in the Tigers in 2020. Bogan, I don't know if you got anything to add to that before we jump into the draw for the Tigers.
Might help if I turn my mic on. No, not really. Once again, another team where I'm more interested to see how they'll perform on the field rather than in Supercoach. I probably won't have a lot of Tigers in there. Just interested to see how many years bloody Benji Marshall has in him.
Yeah, and obviously coached by Madge, mate. You can't understate him. He obviously led South to a premiership, and he's obviously a good coach. He'll get his full.
I think he's won Super League premierships as well. So
there you go.
He's a top coach.
That coach pedigree starts to shine in the last sort of a few years with Trent Robinson and obviously Maguire, but maybe with a full preseason. They obviously had a bit of a falling out there with Madison, which is unfortunate because he was a lot of value to their side in last season, so that was sad to see. And obviously Hassan Masters moving on to the Cows, but it's not all dire for Tigers fans. I think there's plenty of threat out there. It's just whether they can bring that consistency because there's a lot of hot and cold off the cuff sort of players out there. If you look at their draw, they don't have a terrible start to the season. They'll open the season off against the Dragons. They'll play my boys, the Dogs, Warriors in the first month. Again, we'll probably find out a lot about where they're at in that first 4 to 6 weeks, as you will with most sides. They finished the season not too bad as well. You've only got the Raiders there. No Storm or Chooks in your last 6 weeks, which is good. No Souths in there as well. They do play, though, around 16, 17 and 18 Storms, Rabbits and Roosters all back-to-back. So that'll be a bit of a run for them. But, yeah, look, I'm not entirely sure where they'll be looking to finish in 2020. They did remarkably well last season. I think I get my years mixed up. I don't want to was last season where both times they played Melbourne, they beat them, or they drew once with them and then beat them a second time. And the defence was awesome, but it fell away. I can't recall if that was 2018 or last season. Everything's a blur at the moment. But, they got potential. Maybe, as I said, another pre-season on the Madge could go a long way with the type of coach that he is. But otherwise, if you have any good Supercoach options or strategies with Tigers players this season, jump in, let us know who are some guys you're possibly thinking about, if any, from the Tigers in 2020. But that's probably about it from me and the Tigers, Bogan.
Alrighty, so that wraps up the bottom 8 for the 2019 season. So the next team we'll be moving on to is into the top 8 with the Brisbane Broncos.
Boo. So make sure you jump in BJ on GameDay Supercoach group. Up on the screen once again, 218-667.
Get it to 100.
Let's go 100 plus. Thank you all for your support.
We might have 100
far.
by the time this video comes out, but then get it to 150 if it's over 100.
Thank you for your support. Continue the banter, heckle about some outlandish statements I've made, whatever it is. And yeah, thanks everyone for following us and getting around us. Much appreciated.
Hey guys, Joshy here. Thanks very much for joining us for another episode of BJ on Game Day. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell on YouTube for all your notifications. If you do want to follow us on Facebook, you can find us there at BJ on Game Day, and on Twitter we're at BJ on Game Day as well. So guys, we'd really like your support with that. Follow us so we can know you guys are enjoying the content. Thanks very much.